Hi, this is Melissa Booth, and this is discussion 3 on assessments. One of the lessons from the first video that resonated with me is the fact that there is no such thing as a regular classroom. In the past, including when I was in school in the 80s and 90s, teachers would teach the standards at grade level in virtually the same method to every student. When students who were struggling to grasp the content fell behind, or when students who were bored and needed extra mental stimulation checked out, the schools did not do much to differentiate instruction to meet the needs of those students. If one was an average to above average student with no exceptionalities or neurodivergencies, learning was easy. However, for everyone else, learning was either way too difficult or a chore. Now we understand that each individual student is unique and requires unique strategies to learn, including unique ways to assess how he is learning. This is why regular, formative, creative assessments throughout the school year are a far better way to assess students. In the new methods of teaching that use universal design for learning and incorporate socially emotional learning, trauma-informed teaching practices, and focus on the neuroplasticity of the brain, assessment should align with these practices and focus on individual student goals in light of the strengths and knowledge gaps they bring to the classroom. Assessments aid in the design for individual education plans for both general and special education students by allowing teachers to know where their students are so they can know where they need to be. This avoids reteaching content the students already grasp while also avoiding teaching content in which the students don't have the necessary prerequisites required to successfully learn. Assessment should be administered in a variety of ways through a variety of methods and tools, including oral reading exams, computerized assessment programs, question and answer sessions, and skills tests administered orally, technologically, or by paper and pencil, just to name a few. It is important to measure our students' understanding and progress regularly and in a way that does not overwhelm them. When I was a student, I always felt overwhelmed and intimidated by the word test. I believe helping students understand that assessments are for their benefit and can be a relaxing and enjoyable part of the learning experience is really important. None of us do as well as we can when we are upset or anxious, and we should consider that true for our students as well. I believe one of the best ways to ease our students' anxieties about test taking is to omit the word test from our vocabulary. To assess our students often in ways they are most comfortable being assessed, and to help them understand and play a role in their own assessments. Formative assessments help inform teachers on what and how to teach their students based on the knowledge and knowledge gaps their students have. One way I plan to utilize formative assessment practices in my classroom is to assess students during each step of an assignment. I teach special education, so one teaching strategy that is really important for my students is the chunking of assignments. For example, if I am teaching a student how to write a 5-paragraph essay, I will start by telling them they are going to make an outline. Then I will assess them on their outline before I move on to the second step in the writing process. If a student is struggling with the outline step, I am not going to have them begin an introduction paragraph. I will first have them do some exercises or watch some videos or sit one-on-one with them and help them understand how to write an outline. Once they have mastered that step, then I will assign an introductory paragraph. I will then assess their introductory paragraph before they can move on to writing the body of their essay. In this way, I am assessing my students throughout the learning process and not having them proceed to the next step until they understand the step on which they are currently working. One other way I plan to assess my students is to use observation. I believe assessing students can be done without any formal assessment whatsoever, including formative or summative. I can glean a lot of information about how much my students understand and where they are struggling just based on careful observation. Sometimes this looks like grading assignments, sometimes it looks like watching them as they work, sometimes it looks like a question and answer session, and sometimes it can be as simple as a student saying, "I don't understand." One unique formative assessment I plan to utilize is playing games to show mastery of skill. I love games of all types, including board games, card games, computer games like Quizlet, mock games like Classroom Jeopardy. There are so many games a teacher could utilize to assess students, and I have yet to meet a student who was not excited to play a game at school. The other unique formative assessment I plan to use are small journal activities that involve either writing or drawing or both, that ask my students to show mastery of small particular skills. For example, grammar rules, how to create a Venn diagram. Summative assessments are a summary of what students have learned about a particular subject or content standard that was taught over a period of time. Summative assessments are important and have their place in the classroom. It is important that we are able to assess students' abilities to display knowledge of an entire content standard or more than one standard and across multiple subject areas, and to be able to show how their knowledge connects ideas and understanding of multiple standards. However, I believe in the instances in which summative assessments are necessary, they should still be broken into small and manageable assessments, and students should be able to choose how to be assessed as much as possible. During situations in which long summative test-taking days are unavoidable, like state standardized tests, I believe we should focus on supporting our students through these tests as much as possible by making sure we are preparing them for the material they will encounter by using formative assessments and observations throughout the year to make sure they are grasping the content standards, by allowing them to have the amount of time they need to take the test without feeling constrained, by giving them breaks to prevent overwhelm, and by making sure their nutritional, social, and emotional needs are being observed and fulfilled. One unique type of summative assessment I plan to use is a portfolio. I really like the fact that this form of assessment can be implemented in a more formative manner where the student is able to create and build their portfolio over a period of time. I plan to use this assessment especially for my students who struggle with standard test taking. The other unique type of summative assessment I plan to use is a project-based assessment. Similar to the portfolio, this is an assessment a student can work on over a period of time, and it prevents students who struggle with time constraints from getting overwhelmed and performing badly. I plan to develop and implement various assessments by planning ahead and having the assessments ready for each day, week, or unit, and to adapt them as my students learn throughout the week, since the amount of time it takes for students to learn a skill is always variable. I plan to try as many different types of assessments as I can with my students to see which ones they prefer and which ones I prefer, and to modify the types of assessments and ways I administer them as I learn what works and what does not. Some barriers I might face are students who are unmotivated to participate in the types of assessment I have provided, students who have cultural or language barriers to understand how the assessment works, and assessments that simply do not work after they have been tried. I believe teaching is one part education and one part trial and error. I'm learning about the types of assessments a teacher can use through my education, but I plan to learn how to overcome barriers for my students by trial and error. I also believe having alternative options and motivational techniques readily available are an important way to make learning more effective for all students. If I have a student who is struggling with one type of assessment, I will offer her or him the opportunity to show her or his skills through a different type of assessment. If I have students who simply do not understand how to participate, I will take the time to explain the assignment to them in a different way. If I have an unmotivated student, I will try to relate the assignment to her or his interests or adapt the assignment to fit her or his interests. Barriers to learning for my students should never be a reason to give up, but instead a reason to change or adapt the way I am teaching and assessing so that my students have access to the education they deserve.